minutes.
Approved.
Need a motion.
Yeah, I need a motion from somebody.
I wasn't there, but I don't mind doing it.
Aaron moved. I second.
Oh, I didn't hear Aaron. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Any questions or changes or comments on the minutes from last month? Seeing none, all those in favor? Darcy?
Do we have to do? Yep, approved.
Yeah, I'm gonna just call you guys out. Darcy?
Yep.
Aaron?
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
And Gary, are you still not on yet? Probably, right?
Nope.
Okay. All right, that was approved. I don't know if Mark has any public comments or not. I have one, but I'm going to save it for the solar.
I checked with Selena and no, we didn't have any, but I was going to mention, Jennifer, thank you that Mike did send something in. So I'm glad you have that. And we also, along with that comment, we did provide Mike
Yes,
a link.
I've been emailing with him all day today.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no public comments, we will go on to the principal's report.
So Jennifer, I apologize for interrupting.
Yep.
Did you want to read Mike's comment in? Because he did send that in, or do you want to wait to see if he'll join us?
No, because he said even if he joined us, would be okay if I just read it, but I thought, should I read it now during public comments or during when we bring up solar?
Okay, thank you. That's fine. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Principal's report, Mike?
Good. I was going to say evening because by 4:30 it's like really dark out and it feels like evening. But good afternoon, everybody. Sorry that the report was a little late, but at least you got it. I did want to start with, as you know, last week and then this week, we started to have COVID cases here in MDI RSS, and not that I have any wood to knock on, but so far here in Trenton we're okay. However, we've had to deal with secondary contacts of close contacts. So we have worked our plan in terms of working with siblings of folks who are considered a close contact at the high school, and also with staff who may have had a connection with some of the staff over at Connors Emerson, and all went as planned in terms of supporting them and supporting us, and to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. So I'm proud of that. And then of course, every time these things happen, I sit down with the nurse Crystal, who's been tremendous. And we just sort of go over making sure that we have everything right, and we listen to our colleagues who have gone through this and learn little lessons, whether it's making sure that our bus seating lists are readily at hand, to the little cheat sheet of who calls whom at the beginning of our binder. And so, and then if somebody is out sick, if a student is out, Crystal and I might just say, hey, let's pick that person and let's see, and let's go through a quick rundown of what the close contacts would be. So, we're feeling pretty good in terms of if something was to happen here in Trenton, that we have the capacity and the folks to be able to do it, just like our colleagues have at other schools where this has happened, and be able to, continue on. So as Mark had said earlier, at an administrative team meeting, that when this has happened, folks have been ready and they've been able to work their plan rather effortlessly. So but we're always in with each other. So I wanted to mention that. I didn't put that in the report. As you can see, our enrollment, like I said at the beginning of the year, it's going to be in constant flux and movement. We did get a new kindergartner virtually. They're joining us. So that boosts our numbers up to 19. And that number is our virtual and our in-school. So when you see that chart that I send out, that is both virtual and in-school. We had a new pre-Ker that has joining us. And so now we're up to 5. We also received a 3rd grader. And that 3rd grader put our 3rd grade at the Plimsoll line, so to speak. in terms of the total number of kids in that class. So that class is full. Today, I just learned of,
Mike, can I ask you a question?
yeah, go
On
ahead.
that, are there any third graders who are remote? Or is that our total population for third grade?
That is our total population for third grade. There are two that are remote in third grade.
So if they wanted to come back, we'd have to do a pod?
Well, there's all kinds of things happening with that. We're waiting to get our numbers. I'm going to review those numbers with you in just a little bit. I have that on the backside of the next page of my report. So I'll talk a little bit about it in a minute.
Okay, sorry.
But I did get a request from a parent who had children here in the past. They are moving back. One is a 6th grader and one is an 8th grader. And the 8th grader we can potentially fit into class. The 6th grader not at this point, so they'll be going virtual. So Julie, there's another one. We'll talk about it. We had one student in the 7th grade unenroll, and then we had a 1st grader from the last month switch from virtual to homeschool. And then on the back side, you'll see the list of our classes the majority of our classes are at their maximum levels. In terms of the semester 2 survey, as of this afternoon, I think it was around 1 o'clock that I took a look at it. 65 students are listed there. The majority of them were students who were already in person and want to remain in person. There were 4 of the 20 or 19 virtual students. Of the 20 virtual students, 4 of them have filled it out and 4 want to remain virtual. 2 of those virtual students, a 5th grader and a 6th grader, want to switch to in person. And excuse the typo on my document. I wrote in Preston. So that's where we are. And, we're still, I met with my return to school team last week on a Wednesday, and we talked about the potential of a satellite situation somewhere in Trenton, maybe the old Christian school or Big Cat's Catering or the bus depot as extra spaces. But as we talked as a team, there was some reminiscing about what Northeast Harbor went through years ago when I first started as an assistant principal on the island, where they were doing the addition to their school and they spread their kids out within the community pretty close to the school as a whole. So for the most part, kids could walk around to get to where they needed to go. And that's pretty impossible here. And as we talked about it as a return team, just the logistics of and the fact that you'd have to have an isolation room in there, and then what if someone got hurt and getting the nurse, and it just turned into a logistical nightmare. So we said, no, that's not going to work for us. We did identify a couple spaces within our building that if we needed to grow, there were some ideas and potential use of those spaces in the different wings. We're going to meet again as our numbers firm up a little bit to see what our options might be. So, we're going to meet once we have a little bit firmer sense of the numbers, but that's where we are right now. I would not want to go into hybrid. So if there's something I could do within the school, we will do our very best. I know that one of our teachers has kids in Lemoyne, and they talked about what they did with some of their high flyer kids is they are in a room off of the classroom they would be in that would be overflowing, and those kids have headsets. And so they zoom into the classroom, but because they're a little bit more independent, there isn't a tech that supports them, but they sort of do class from this other room. They're just not with the kids. So that's one thing we could sort of think about. And we have used our CRF money to actually buy little headphones with the speaker on it, with the microphone on it for kids, for the possibility if either they were home, because that becomes really useful. It's easier for kids to focus on what's going on rather than all the stuff that's going on in the background. And it's easier for their classmates and their teachers to hear them when the mic is right there. So we'll have that as an option when it gets to us. Staffing update, I just wanted to share that I've spoken to Roy a couple times, and he's going to be returning after the holiday break. His surgery went really well, and his rehab is going really well, and he misses the kids greatly. He's going to be zooming into a couple of his classes this week. Autumn Domain has done a wonderful job, taking over and being able to, continue the work. And Roy has been checking in with her, but he's excited to get back, and, the kids are excited to see him. So that's some good news. In terms of stuff happening here at school, Mrs. Ross has been on a tear with the 4th grade. They produced some PSAs on social distancing and mask wearing and how to wash and sanitize your hands. And those are linked on the website, and they've been going out in the newsletter for the last couple of weeks. Before the Thanksgiving break, the kids made little centerpieces for their families. And so I listed that there. And the other thing is that she worked with Brittany Parker, who is the education director of the Strand Theater, and the 4th graders are doing a version, they're reading A Christmas Carol, and it's going to be performed on WERU on Sunday at 3 p.m. on the 20th. So I'm going to be sending out a little note to folks later. She sent out a note today, but they'll be doing their reading of A Christmas Carol. It'll be on the radio. So that's pretty exciting. 3rd graders for Veterans Day made cards that were delivered to the veterans at Birch Bay Village. And they were very appreciative of that. Speaking of Thanksgiving, I had taken a picture of Teresa's. Usually you all would have been invited to our Thanksgiving meal. And Teresa.
Yeah, yeah, Mike, thanks. Because you sent me a picture of your dinner. And
that was my dinner.
I just want you to know that was not okay.
I just wanted you to know that the tradition had not faded away with COVID. And we were just making sure our school pod was safe. But I wanted you to know we were still moving forward. That went off really well. And the kids were so happy to have their traditional meal. They were questioning in the weeks ahead of time, are we still going to do Thanksgiving? And we did. So thank you to Teresa and her staff. Just some other couple of highlights. The middle school has been working on solar ovens. They're doing physics, and Mia had thought it would be a really good idea to try to do something a little bit hands-on around this holiday time. And so they were working on heat energy. So they've had to design ovens around some certain specifications to get to a specific temperature to be able to melt a marshmallow and make s'mores. So they're still in the process of doing that. Both the 7th and 8th graders are. When the sun is out, they've been able to go out and see if their tweaks and designs have been increasing the temperature inside of the oven as they have been building them. So that has been, good for them. I wanted to let you know that we had a particular parent of a pre-K and a kindergartner who just out of the blue, one day sent the entire staff whoopie pies from the main whoopie pie company, and then saw a neat thing of this T-shirt that you can take a picture with your cell phone, and the way that it's designed, and it shows the inner organs of your body, and then you can text and do all kinds of stuff. And he asked me if to order some for kids, and I was like, well, I don't know about that, but we do have a skeleton in our biology class for 7th and 8th grade, and Mr. Bones could really use a shirt, so he bought that T-shirt. And so when they do biology, Mix Callahan has the app, and then they could look at Mr. Bones and do some internal organ stuff. So it was just a couple of thoughtful, kind gifts, just thanking the school and the staff. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Some upcoming field trips that are coming into school is we have the Chewonki Foundation. They got a grant, and they're supporting us to do virtual programs for our K through 6th grade. And then we have the Jack's Lab is doing a COVID biology session with 7th and 8th graders next week. So we're looking forward to that. I put an ad out for extracurricular. I put an ad out for both a boys and girls basketball coach, and we'll see what we get, depending on what the situation looks like. If we have coaches, then we can either get started with skills training, after the holiday. But for us, the thing that's getting in the way is, we don't have coaches yet, and we'll see what the ads bring. If someone wants to come and do basketball or some other kind of programming, depending on what the circumstances are. Around professional development, I just wanted to let you guys know that we are working with Lana Plenty. She is the former Mind Up curriculum coach that we had that came here and worked with our staff on doing mindful minutes and using the Mind Up curriculum. She has gone out on her own, and she is providing some professional development in that school goal for us. With COVID hitting, it was really important, and the leadership team felt it was really important to support teachers. And Lana's program does 3 sessions that we'll be doing at 3 faculty meetings, working on adult well-being, because the only way that it's going to work well for the kids if the adults are in a really good place. And so Lana's going to sort of take us through that process. She knows that we have a committed staff and a plan, and she's going to work with us all to sort of see that and move that forward. So that's some of our Title I money that we're getting from the state is going to support Lana doing monthly staff meetings, and then she's working with the leadership team on the overall curriculum for social emotional learning. And then I also wanted to let you know that with the passage of the early release, common studies will begin. They'll be happening. Julia has created a sort of a rotating basis, and they'll be happening in that 2 to 3 slot for teachers. And then I just sort of wrote down, some of the things that we'll be using that time for, which be around vertical planning and math, reading, and SEL. Part of that is tied to our Title I whole school designation and work that we have to do to meet some goals. It'll be for team meeting times, some teacher planning time, and then again, common studies. And that's how I see that work. We are lucky in terms of the vertical math conversations is that I have teachers who are really excited about that. And I have a really good state coach who is our Title I coach, Kim Schroeder, who was a former math teacher, and she worked for Adamon and was an assistant superintendent for curriculum. And she's just really excited. And she has been coming to the middle school math teams meetings on a weekly basis because she just loves the conversations that they're having and the insights that they're seeing. And I kind of highlighted for staff recognition, that middle school math group, which is Connie Blaney, Linda Dunn, Megan Baldridge, and Mia Callahan, and just the continuation of the work and thinking about how to make math more engaging for kids and doing a lot of self-reflective work. Elementary school teachers are invited, and we're starting to draw them in. At a last staff meeting, I tried to get them excited about the conversations with Kim, and I think a couple are going to start showing up. And that's one of the goals, is to have those deeper conversations. I also wanted to give a shout out to our Alter after school program, and that Mia, Megan, Linda Dunn, Helen, who's a COA student, works with 4th grade, Rachel Beckwith, and Mackenzie Cowles, who is working with our K1-2 folks, are doing some tutoring in that modified ASP, staying within their pods. And so that got started just before Thanksgiving with a couple times a week, and the teachers are running those programs. And, so far that's been going really well. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share.
Awesome. Thank you. A lot of work going on.
Yeah, there's a lot
Mark?
going on.
Oops, sorry.
Jennifer, why do I have to follow Mike? It's kind of like following your big brother. I mean, he says all these nice things about all the great things.
Well, you'll just have to take that up with Selena and have her switch that on the list.
I'll be quick. But no, it's when you have the pleasure to hear all the good things that kids and staff are doing, and with everything going around us, it's nice to hear all that. So Mike, you know, give a shout out to you too, because you're doing a great job, and all the principals are, and the staff. So thanks for everything you're doing, because I know you're working your butt off. Just want to try to any opportunity I can, Jen, as briefly as I can, just a shout out to our nurses, and to make sure that parents, if people are listening in, really know that our nurses have a tough job right now. We all have a tough job, but we need to listen to our nurses and make sure if they're giving us a phone call with some information, to just listen, ask questions, but they're keeping our kids and our staff safe and working to keep our schools open. So we just need to just continue to take care of each other, but listen to our nurses. I can't say that enough. We also, all of us, and I'm going to say this very carefully, because accountability begins and ends at the schoolhouse door. So I just say this as generously and as neighborly as possible, but what we do outside of school, me included, students, community members, really matters in terms of keeping our schools open. So wearing a mask, you know, thinking about what we're doing or not doing, it's really hard during the holiday season. You know, I have a 94-year-old mother, and I have to think about those things as much as we all have to think about our families. And everybody's working so hard, and nobody should be feeling bad if information comes to us and we've all done the right things. So I just can't emphasize enough to keep working hard, be patient. A vaccine is coming, but you know, for the general populace, and me included, that's a ways down the road. And I think we need to be prepared for the long haul, keep wearing masks, and I'll say this too, even when a vaccine comes and all the stuff we're doing, everybody should be prepared to continue to do these things for a while into 2021. And this is not Mark Gauss. These are the doctors that are saying, yeah, we're going to need to continue to wear masks. We're going to need to continue to physically distance. We're going to need to continue to make sure that we have good hygiene. And those are things that we're going to need to be prepared to do. The more that we can do those, the sooner we can get back to what we all want to be doing. With that, I'm pleased that we are going to start our asymptomatic testing. And I also want to say this very carefully. We have an extraordinary resource available to us that's going to help. It's a tool, it's an indicator. None of us should be surprised if we have tests that come back that show there's COVID that may be prevalent within our staff or our schools. So we hope that's not the case. I mean, with everything we've done, we don't believe that's the case, but this is a tool that's going to allow us to see whether or not that is the case. And that will allow us to respond, not react. Along those lines, you know, we have had some positive cases in schools. And I mean, if you think about that for a second, the work that our teachers and our staff have done, our kids, our communities, is extraordinary. To think that we've had a few cases, 3 to be exact, 2 at Bar Harbor and 1 at the high school with students, and we're into December. Now, we'd all like to have no cases, but if you think about that, what we know about those cases are that the schools are not transmitting COVID, at least our area schools. We know that. So our schools are safe. But what does happen outside of our schools with all of us really determines whether or not we can keep them open. So can't emphasize enough that, you know, this has got to be a total community effort, not just school effort. And just respecting that everybody has varying opinions, but there has to be some common agreements for us to be able to continue to move forward. So I just appreciate the opportunity and the platform to say that. That testing will occur tomorrow. We have a late arrival, and that's not something that we will be sustained, the late arrival. That's a one-time thing for this event to support that the benchmark testing of all of our staff around the district. So tomorrow will be K6. It is completely safe to do what we are doing. We have vetted this with the hospital, with the lab, over and over again. We're working with many experts. So this is the protocols that our nurses and others have put in place are really exceeding in many respects the standards we have right now. So I'm very confident it's safe. Anybody that has been identified as an individual that may be a close contact to quarantine staff member will be tested, just not during the next 2 days. That will be facilitated by the hospital. And at this time, that doesn't impact anybody to my knowledge at Trenton. Thursday will be the high school benchmark testing along with central office. And the results are really pretty quick. We'll know the results, or the individual will get the results within 48 hours. It will go to the individual, not the school. If the results are negative, we continue. If the results are positive, the individual is instructed to contact their school nurse, principal, and primary care physician, and it remains completely confidential. From there, we go into sentinel testing, which will be a cohort of approximately 100 people that'll be tested bi-weekly. And again, that'll be a random selection of front-facing employees throughout the district. And again, that will allow us to assess whether or not we have any evidence of community spread of COVID. The last thing I'll hold on, which is just, I know we're going to talk a little bit about the School Evaluation Option Committee report, which I'm looking forward to that discussion because those folks did some good work. But I just want to close out by saying that when we talk about the budget, there's a lot of context when we get into next steps. And I can't say enough. We want to continue to work with the town and the community. Moving forward, Trenton is a really, really important part of the AOS, and we benefit greatly. And we want to continue to work to make sure that there are some things I'm aware with the AOS budget that may raise some eyebrows, but I don't want anybody to think that we're being naive or foolish, that we're very cognizant when we do these things. We're very conscious that we need to bring some efficiencies forward and potential savings that are going to be able to justify the requests we're making. So thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mark.
Mike, who went longer, me or you?
I think he did. 2022 budget. Who's going to start? Mike?
Mikey's going to take this away because he's worked closely with Nancy and I can fill in any gaps, but go ahead, Mike. And you get the big, healthy, I know you're chomping at the bit to get at that carry forward piece. So take it away.
And we're going to hold on to that. Do folks want me? I sent the preliminary budget to folks. I can't remember in Zoom. I forgot that I'm not in Meets. And so if I wanted to share something, I think I would have to send it to Josh.
Yeah, if you send it to him, Mike, that should be fine. But did you email that to everybody too? I don't know. People may not have the double.
He says I'm the co-host, so I can. So if people want, I can share what was sent, or you could just look at it on your screen.
I think, Mike, you should share it because if anybody's zooming in,
that's right,
they'll be able to see it, and they'll be able to see it on the YouTube link, please and thank you.
It'll just take me a minute to, okay, share screen. There we go. I have to open.
Sorry, Mike.
That's okay.
If I messed you up. So while he's teeing that up, Jennifer,
Yep.
You're going to see a larger than anticipated carry forward, which is
Yep.
it's a good problem to have. The
Yeah.
question is what the school committee does with it and what the town, so hopefully we can talk about that good problem. And it's not what was anticipated, but at the end of the day, I think that there's a lot of explanations that show why that happened. And so now that Mikey's up, I'll let him run with it.
Okay.
Do folks need that a little bit bigger?
We can pinch it open bigger.
Yeah, looks good, Mikey.
So I'll start, right from the top. When you can take a look at the carryover, what the estimated was, and then what, we're looking at for this year. You can see that that's an unaudited number. And then I want to be able to sort of share, what that number, that 500,000, where that is sort of coming from. So if you look below there in column D and E, you can sort of see where, as Nancy was playing around, where some of that difference is coming from. We've gotten anticipating an extra $27,000 in subsidy from the state. So there's part of it. We were not billed, even though teachers were doing some of the remote work with pre-K kids through last spring. We were not charged, the total amount through our agreement with Down East Community Partners. So there were savings in there, even though they were doing, some things with parents and delivering packets. They did not charge us the normal amount. I'm going to skip over the tuition one, the 162,000, because I'll do that in a minute. The 22K on special ed tuition, that is savings from work that was done by Melissa Beckwith, and some fees that we did not incur when Kids Peace went remote, and there's some related services that wouldn't have been performed, so we didn't get charged for those. Also, there's about $39,000 in ed tech costs because we weren't in school. There were certain things they weren't doing, so we weren't billed as much. 20,000 in capital outlay, and of course we weren't heating the building, and so we saved about 10,000 in heating.
Jennifer, Mike, can I just interject one thing?
Go ahead.
Please, Jennifer, if I may.
Yes.
So as we're looking at this, it's going to raise some eyebrows, and it should, but I would say if, on a budget, I think Mike is of the same opinion that we work to be very conservative, but if you're going to have anything that should surprise you, and you don't want surprises in budgets, that's number one. And number two, if you look at the $308,000, approximately 150,000 of that is, that's columns D and E. And those are things that people should say, hey, good job. I hope they would, because that's being very responsible with the resources. The remaining 158, we're going to drill down further because I really want to look at that. But I think that's Mike being very cognizant of the times we've been in, the staff being very cognizant of the times we've been in, the respect of the town and trying to work with the town to understand that we're trying to really make sure that we're very efficient with all of our resources. I can't give enough credit to Mike, to Nancy, and to just say again to the town that we want to work with the town, that we're very conscious of costs. And I think this is an example of an opportunity we have with how we can work collaboratively with the carry forward to make sure that we avoid roller coasters and that we continue to move forward. So I just wanted an opportunity to emphasize that. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mark. And I think that one of the things that people really need to understand is that the majority, Mike hasn't spoken about the 162,000 yet, but most of what he has spoken about is COVID related. So we're seeing these savings because it was not in our control and we could not be in the building or here or there. So this carry forward might not happen again next year because our kids are in school. So we can't all of a sudden say, oh, we have $500,000 in overage, let's spend it, because next year's budget might reflect something completely different if we don't close our schools and have these COVID issues.
I know some folks have an aversion to the word cliff, so I tried to avoid it, and I'm still going to avoid it and say, let's avoid a roller coaster. Let's make sure that whatever we do with resources, we work collaboratively to make sure that the impact to our communities is as leveled as possible. I can't emphasize that enough. I think that's very important in every one of our member communities. Thank you.
Yep.
Well said. And now the tuition piece, Nancy and I am going to spend a little bit of time, next week taking a look at that in specific. As I had said at the beginning of this year, we lost a lot of students K-8 who, after the springtime, moved. I think there were 20 total students that moved throughout the state between the end of last year and the beginning of this year. So hence our student population has declined. Some of those, I think there's maybe 9 of those students who sort of homeschooled, but there was a large group that moved out to different towns due to financial strain because of COVID. And it was the largest number I've seen since being here. I did not look closely at the high school numbers. And so that tuition reflects our high school tuition numbers. Potentially we lost some students there that were on the rolls. And then when we started the new year, they were no longer here. So that's one of the pieces in sort of the drilling down, because in previous years, we have been burnt by the fact that we didn't have enough money in that line to support students who've moved in. I think that it just sort of goes to the thinking about whether or not, because we are a choice community, that we should have some kind of tuition reserve to sort of help even out, those tuition needs. When we go to the next page and we take a look at our enrollment numbers, when we build our budget, we're looking at October numbers, and they can go up or they can go down. And every time we get closer and closer to our budget and within our budgetary process where we are voting on a budget, we've oftentimes come back and adjusted those numbers based on what the real numbers are at the high school. And, we'll continue to do that. But I'll spend some time with Nancy to take a look at that piece, because I think that's one that we'll want to make sure we have answers for. I think the other ones, like you said, Jennifer, all of those pieces are COVID related. There is a potential that some of that tuition savings is because of some families moving out of the district after the springtime because of financial strains, on their families, and they needed to move elsewhere to be able to provide for their families. So we'll take a look at those, and I'll bring those at our next meeting in January, where we'll do our first run through with the budget, just to have a clearer sense of that portion of what our carryover and where it came from. But we've tried very careful to make sure we had enough money in that line to support kids going to high school in this district, whether it's MDI or Ellsworth. And so in scrolling down, the things that I wanted to sort of point out is in taking a look at special ed techs in the resource room, there's sort of an overage there. Part of that, when you're thinking about looking forward, is savings because of what we had for CRF funds, COVID relief funds, to pay for some of the extra support in the classrooms. And that has been really needed. And in some of those funds, as I look going past January, where I will potentially be losing some support in classrooms, which has been awesome for teachers, that, I might be able to extend some of our support because of the savings with the CRF money to help teachers have ed techs within those classrooms to support the needs of those kids with distancing, with the duties that they have to do. And there's a whole host of things, and being available if they needed to go remote. So there are those savings there. When you drop down and look at electricity and heating costs, Nancy and I were looking at, $1,000 potentially in more electricity costs. We'll sort of see how that sort of pans out. There are more HEPA filters in this school than there ever were before. And the heat is running more than it has been running in terms of keeping windows open so that we have the fresh air. So, those numbers, we'll see what happens. So we'll keep an eye on those, but we were anticipating that those costs will be, if not what's listed there, but potentially higher. In the tuition and reimbursement, you'll see that there's that 22,000. Right now we have budgeted the 812. And what Nancy did is she put in those 2 extra. So right now we're at what we budgeted, and then she put in those 2 extras just in case, and that's why that piece is higher there. I didn't get a chance to talk with Nancy on the Blue Cross Blue Shield and those savings. I'm not sure if Mark can talk a little bit about that.
Yep, I can. So that, and I'm going to be careful, this is an observation, not a confirmation. But during this time of COVID, we've seen a lot of elective surgeries, procedures rather, and other types of things not be as prevalent. And it's simply because people are being much more guarded unless it's an emergency. So that could be a factor. That could be a factor. However, as things open up, you may see, the other trend occur. We'll have more information when we get our annual report. That, again, when we get that report, we don't get specific information on employees. We get a broad general piece. But in talking with other superintendents and industry executives, I'm fairly confident that's one of the indicators as to why we see a higher balance. Of course, it may be different in different schools depending upon what occurs, but that's probably what that piece is. Moving forward for this year, we are going to budget our planned 10% for a health insurance increase. And, we're hopeful with the things that we're doing that it won't come anywhere near that, and we'll be able to make adjustments accordingly. Thank you.
And I think we should also bear in mind for fiscal year 23, because if our rates next year or for 22 are based on our performance this year and not having elective surgeries and stuff like that, might make our number go way down. And that's going to be false comfort for the following year when maybe COVID isn't as prevalent and people start having elective surgeries, and then our numbers go back up.
I think, yeah, Jennifer, I for the amount of time I've been a principal, a superintendent, I can't ever think in any of the communities I've worked in not budgeting at least for a 10% increase, and then, crossing your fingers and saying, great. And we've been very fortunate here.
Yes.
We've been able to make the adjustments, and the timing of the budget in Trenton aligns pretty well with that information. So I think we're in a good place.
Okay.
I'm confident we'll be able to drill down, give more information about that number, and be more specific as we get into the budget for the next year.
Okay.
And then just to highlight the regular instruction, the 3-8 teachers, that difference in terms of the hiring process, we hired folks with a little bit more experience than might have been, what we had put in there.
Which is a very good thing, Mike.
That is a very good thing, and higher degrees.
You're hiring good people, so hats off to you.
Yep. Yes, I don't see that as a bad thing. And when I go into those classrooms and I see them working, it's definitely a good thing for our community and a great thing for our kids. The substitute line, we'll see how that goes in terms of, doing our best to try to use as much COVID money as possible, but there's a potential spending more money as we move through, as more people, will be needing to stay out. And then on the bottom, you will see the, where we stand with our projected balance with the maintenance of plant reserve and the special ed reserve at $13,000. So our total reserves are at 73,000.
Jennifer,
Yes,
can I add one thing?
sure.
So, this is a lot of information to process, and Mike, I have a question, then a comment. At what point does the school committee, and I say this for the public, need to finalize a budget recommendation to go before the select board? And, excuse me, before the finance committee and select board? Is there a month that we're targeting?
Usually that happens in March.
Okay, so thank you, Mike. So let's assume, late January, early February, we want to be coalescing around something. My point is that the school committee has a lot of opportunity here using this information to work to develop a budget moving forward for FY22. So with that, as I'm looking at these reserves, special education, maintenance of plant, all the stuff we talked about, insurance, we're going to be having some conversation about solar and other things. I hope we can just keep our minds open to options and possibilities and how we can navigate this, and do that collaboratively with the town and with the finance committee. This can be a win-win. And, again, it's not our money. This is taxpayer money, but education, public education is a great investment. And I'm just hoping that we can utilize this as an opportunity to move forward and work with people throughout our community. But I can't say enough. I am ready to roll up my sleeves and work with the select board, work with the school committee to really move forward here. I think this is what I've been praying for, is a pathway, at least an opening through this amount and going into the next year. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you. Is that it for the budget, Mike?
And then and then on the back, just so to take a look at enrollments, when Nancy and I begin our conversations, we sort of do a projection. And so you could see our projections for enrollment for next year. As you could see, have sort of been on a steady rise, and then COVID hit and we dropped. But when I look over movement and, people are starting to move in again, we'll probably be up around 131 students next year. When you look at the high school enrollment, there as well, we're kind of staying in the upper 60s, going up by one from last year. Right now I have several tables of where either there are superintendent's agreements or students who are homeschooled or doing other types of schooling to try to keep track to make sure that our numbers going into the high school reflect who's going there. So though there are right now 10 kids who are 8th graders, potentially there's 2 out there that could potentially be going to either Ellsworth or MDI. So that's why that number under 9th grade is 12. Yet my enrollment for 8th grade this year is 10. So, I try to keep track of those kiddos that aren't necessarily in regular school to make sure our numbers are right. And again, that's October, and then things change, but I try to keep track of that. Down below, the enrollment is just the numbers of teachers and what that total is. And we've been keeping track of that since 08, 09, and we're at 20.35. That number is mostly reflecting the change of having Katie Sarenic as our K2 special ed, working with our new kiddos that came in, and that's why that number is higher than what it had been last year. other than that, we're staying the same when you look at those numbers for this year.
Good job, Mike. It's
That's
not
what-
easy.
That's where we're going to start. Where we'll
Hey, we got
start.
a few
Jennifer,
months to pick at it.
Jennifer.
Yes.
So, with that start, because I know the AOS is considering some things. I just want to acknowledge that with the budget considerations of the AOS, those are those increases or recommended increases are not going to directly impact central office. What those things are going to do, the majority, the lion's share of the increase, the requested operations manager position and the asymptomatic testing, which is, together those are about $170,000 of requested increases. I just can't emphasize enough the impact on our principal with what he has to do in terms of managing day-to-day operational things with maintenance and plant. And that Mike, as a principal, as an educational leader, I would hope that we would agree that we want him to focus on teaching and learning. And Mike and his colleagues in our present system aren't able to concentrate all of their efforts in that area all the time. It's nobody's fault. It's just the way we're set up, and that's the way we've lived. Now more than ever, COVID has exposed our vulnerabilities. And I just want to open the door to say, to Mike, if I'm misspeaking or I'm missing the mark, this is the time, Mike, to say what you do or don't need. The second part of that is asymptomatic testing. And I sure as heck hope we don't have to use it, but I think the COVID question is going to be around for a while. And if we're not going to support that, then we ought to consider whether we want to buy insurance. I think it's the right thing to do for our community, for our kids, for our staff. So those are two big pieces. But Mike, I'm not sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. Operations, what are you thinking?
Well, just this afternoon, I was spending time because, along with the maintenance director, dealing with issues of toilets and cleaning protocols for classrooms. There's a host of things that I end up spending my time on that are outside the realm of teaching and learning, that are just around sort of the maintenance of this building. And, we're going to be talking a lot about solar and all of that and getting, that, up and running. And anytime there's something that goes wrong, whether, luckily, I think I put in my report that the boiler inspector came and that went really well. So that's good. He left smiling. So that's always a good thing. But, having to deal with, those things with the plant and the maintenance of it, oftentimes sort of keeps me from, doing, the work of being in the classroom, supporting the new teachers in the middle school, or seeing how helping to support those vertical math. I haven't been able to go to one of the vertical math meetings after school just because of the variety of things, that are on the plate. And so having somebody at the district level to manage the building plant, and that's even as simple as playground stuff and making sure that you have enough wood chips to cover certain things and where you're going to get those from and all of that. And your maintenance director does some of that within your building, but then they're busy out making sure that the cafeteria is clean for the next group that's coming in and has to go through those protocols. So there's a lot of those pieces that sort of play into it. So
I want to underscore one thing that Mike mentioned, and I think this is really important. Kim and her staff, all of the support staff do an incredible job. That school, when you walk in, is so clean and so well maintained. So this is not about devaluing any of the great people we have now. This is about further supporting them and putting our efforts in making sure that our educational leaders can focus on teaching and learning. But I want to tip my cap to Kim and everyone in that building, because it looks great all the time, regularly. There's never a misstep for those guys.
And definitely the piece, I mean, one of the things, becoming an on-the-fly expert in fresh air, that was something new, for me, and having to, and working with, staff and other people to make sure that, the building is heated appropriately with fresh air, and there's enough fresh air coming in during the winter months to deal with, all that. So, there's a lot of things that, that sort of get in the way of, when we go back to what Mark was saying.
Mike won't say it, but that's not the norm in any other, public school system of our size and scope. Mike doesn't have a boiler license and all these things. And we're spending precious resources, and we want to make sure that we maximize them. So I just wanted to make sure that when folks say, what the heck are they doing at the AOS with these budgets? We're really looking forward and trying to make sure that we're efficient with our resources, and not spending money that in a wasteful manner. Thanks.
Is that it, Mike?
That was it.
Okay. Before we go on, I just want to make sure, did you add Gary to the attendance? He's here.
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. Next on to solar power. I'll start off by saying that I got an email from Michael Gilmartin. He was supposed to come to our meeting today, but we are no longer in the school. So he sent me a letter, and he was okay with me reading it into the record. And then we can have a conversation. And I emailed it to you, Mike, so you wouldn't have to be typing. Hi, Jennifer. Hope all is well with you. I was notified by Carol at the town office that no one outside of staff is allowed into the school. As you know, I was meant to come again to talk to the board about solar. I do want to stress the money being lost on electricity, along with the increase in the cost of the roof repair, is mounting every year we fail to act. Time to act is now. We've let too much money pass us by. This is not just about being green. It's also about being financial responsibility to the citizens of Trenton. I hope you will convey this to the board, and the board can start to act on this. Thanks for the work you do for us, Michael Gilmartin. And now I'll open it up to a discussion.
Jennifer, can I just
Yes.
something out briefly?
Yep.
I cannot emphasize enough our commitment to eco-friendly systems and alternative energy. I think that's evidenced by the fact, from a district perspective, of our support for the MDI high school project and the work in Trenton, in Tremont. So I couldn't agree more with Michael's comments. The time to act is now. It's a question of how we act. We may have an opportunity coming up here. I think the right way to go, both from a financial and an environmental platform, is to work to incorporate solar at our school. I was also thinking, as Mike was presenting, with the teachers we have, what our kids would say about this. I mean, when I think about the high school project, that project was really born out of a vision by a student. So there are so many positives to this, and it just strikes me that this should not be a topic that divides our community. It divides anyone. We should come together. I think there's been broad support, and I hope that we can find a way to look at, with some of the resources that we may have available to us, to get that roof repaired, and then talk about what the next steps are. I think the past decisions by the school committee, and those of them that have been supported by the community, have been the right one at the right time, not expending reserve funds. But Mike's right. We've got to move forward now. And I'm ready to, again, roll up my sleeves, work with Michael, work with Nancy, Mike Zabore, our principal, and others, and figure out how we can do this. It doesn't necessarily, again, have to be just the roof, okay? You know, is the roof leaking? No. But do we need to do it if we're going to do solar on the roof? Yes. Does that need to be now? Maybe. But there's many ways to incorporate solar. Would I like to see it at the school? Personally, yes. But I just wanted to put it out there that I hope this doesn't become something that divides us, that we find a way to do it. You know, when we did the high school project, we put out $0 to do that project. There are ways to move this forward. So thanks, Jennifer.
Yep. I agree. I think that, you know, I still get nervous about what our maintenance reserve is, because I've always been nervous about money and finances. If we have such a large carryover that we might anticipate, that might also alleviate some issues. I think going to the select board and asking them to participate more financially than maybe what they had initially said that they would, so that we can keep our reserve safe for building issues. If we can find other ways to do this, I'm all aboard. I mean, getting solar at the school would help the town as well, because we could link in the town office and the fire department into it as well. So this doesn't just benefit the school and the taxes for the school, but it benefits the whole town. So I'd like to see maybe a little bit more participation from the select board in that stance of it. Maybe what we need to do right now, because all of our estimates for the roof were from a little over a year ago, is maybe have those people send in a new RFP. They don't need to come to the school because they've already been there the first time. The building has not changed. No issues have changed. So I think that they could amend, you know, what they would be looking to charge just based on the times now and where things have gone cost-wise for them. Is that something that the rest of the board would be okay with having, you know, Mike send out, you know, an email to the people who came in the first time with estimates?
I am personally fine with that, but I will never, ever spend reserve on a capital project. The time to budget for this was last year. And I feel like, you know, if it was such a big issue last year, then it would have been brought up and it would have been included in the budget in an appropriate manner, not to drain our reserves. I will never, ever vote to fix the roof with our reserve money unless it's an emergency. So, you know, unless it starts springing a leak and we need to get it fixed, but that's why it's there. And it's not a capital outlay expenditure.
Anybody else have comment?
I just appreciate Tom's perspective, because from an administrative point of view, that would be our view as well. That's what that money's there for emergencies or things. It's not intended or was never set up to be a capital outlay expenditure or funding device. And Nancy Thurlow would confirm that as well.
Yep. And I think just based on how the board has been voting in the past about this or talking about this in the past, that everybody kind of feels the same way. A reserve is for emergencies, you know, and right now we're not in an emergency, but maybe we can figure something else out budgetary wise, you know, going forward.
I mean, Jennifer, you know, from that approach, and again, not to divide, but just to suggest, you know, I asked that question of Michael because the school committee and others have time now with these projections to think about what we're going to do to move forward. So yes, we can get updated bids on the roof. We can start to plan and get a placeholder and proceed that way. But my recommendation, I believe Mike's recommendation and Nancy's would be, if the school committee thinks this is a priority, with or without solar, then we budget accordingly for it as a capital expenditure. And hopefully we get the town to you know, support and participate in that. And I agree with you. If we're going to do the project, why limit it to the school? fire station, town office, and other entities. This should be something that is a win-win. Thank you.
I just want to make sure, sorry, I just want to make
No,
sure
it's
that I
fine.
remember correctly. Like in our original budget last year, we had planned for it, and then COVID hit, and with all the uncertainties, we decided to shrink the budget as much as we could, and we pulled it. If that was my understanding, right?
That's my understanding, Tom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So again, I agree that I think we've all thought it as a priority, but times have changed, and again, I am just going to reiterate, I don't feel like this coming in at the 11th hour because the tax credits are starting to expire and saying we have to do it now, you need to bleed your reserves, is the proper way of fiscal management for a school. And I think that is, I think by statute, one of our priorities. So I will, again, defer to never doing that.
Agreed. Thank you. Well, maybe then what we need to do is to have this put into the budget on a budget line item, get in some new bids to see what we're actually looking at to put it in. I believe the solar portion would probably not be an expense if we do it the way the high school did it. It would be an expense down the road that we can, maybe even set a reserve for that in the future. But let's get it in the budget and see what the numbers look like. Is everybody okay with that?
And if the school committee would like, if that's the direction you're planning to go in, we should start to do the work to work with companies that are out there and look at a bid or an opportunity on just what that might look like for the school committee and the town to consider.
I agree.
Okay, so we can start going down that road. I think it's fair to say there's more competition out there. People are trying to go in that direction, but if that's the will of the school committee, we'll start pursuing it.
Yep. And I think we should do that and get it in the budget and see what it looks like. Anybody else have any comments on that, or?
Just would like permission, Jennifer, from you and the board through Mike to reach out to Mike and thank not Mike Zabori, but Mike
Gil Martin.
Gil Martin. Apologize and thank him and continue to work with him, because here's a guy with a vision and he's done it in a really positive way, and I appreciate him staying on target.
Yep.
A lot of passion there, and it's good stuff. Yes.
All right. Authorization to sign Versant Power easement.
Mike, this is more of a housekeeping. I don't want to say housekeeping, but maybe you can walk us through that. I'm aware of it, and I would support it through my office, but maybe you can give an overview to the board on what this is all about. You got to unmute, buddy.
Yeah, geez, I thought I'd get away with one meeting not doing that. But no. If you've been up to the school, you've seen that our neighbors that are just before you hit the parking lot on the right, that Patricia Howard, that property there, they have a larger piece to the side of them that goes sort of behind the school by the basketball courts, and they are putting a house up there for a family member. The house is up, and to access power, the power it comes through the poles that are on the school property. So Versant needs an easement to be able to start that work. And the way that works is apparently the school board needs to give permission to the Board of Selectmen to sign the easement provided. So as soon as you do this motion, then I can cut and paste it and send it off to the selectman's office, and then they can sort of sign the easement. And there's a house sitting over there that's just waiting for power.
This is a housekeeping item.
I move that we allow the select board to sign the easement to give those people power.
Second.
I have a motion that I actually have to read for that.
Oh, okay.
But thank you.
There you go. That's where I was going to go, but I'm sorry.
The school committee approves the request of Versant Power to extend services to the Patricia Howard property and authorizes the Board of Selectmen of the town of Trenton to sign the easement provided by Versant Power. All those in favor? I will read your names. Gary? Gary?
Excuse me, Jennifer,
Yes?
just point of clarification.
Second.
You just read that. So did you make that motion, Jennifer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
Sorry.
Nope, it's okay. I just want to make sure for the record we're clean. So
Yeah.
you have a motion, Jennifer, a second. You can do discussion, then
Does
vote.
anyone have any questions or comments? It was seconded by Tom. Any questions or comments from anybody? Okay, then I'm just gonna list you off so you could say yay or nay. Gary,
Approved.
Darcy,
Approve.
Aaron,
Approved.
Tom,
Approve.
and I approve as well. So moved.
Thank you, and apologies, just trying to make sure that
Yeah,
Robert's rules are followed.
yeah. Okay, now school committee response to the SEOC report.
Jennifer, can I just make a brief comment?
Absolutely.
So I think folks are aware, Tom has shared it widely with the town office and the school committee, but I first off want to thank the community members that have done the work and the select board, because look, no matter how people see the school evaluation option committee report, it gives us information, and information is important. And so through that lens, I hope that we can provide the community a perspective that through the school committee that allows a response to the information. Doesn't necessarily mean agreement, doesn't necessarily mean a challenge, but some of the information needs to be put in context. There's also some recommendations that need to be considered. And I just say that looking at some of the information Tom has put together, it's non-judgmental, it's just factual, it's data. And I think that's a very good approach to just be non-judgmental and respond with some data, but also give a path forward to acknowledge some of that work and at the same time respond to some of those recommendations and let the community know that we are always open to feedback, always open to looking within, and at the same time moving forward. So I've talked briefly with Michael. I don't want to overstep by volunteering Tom, but he's already done a lion's share of work, and I hope it continues. And I know Mike is chomping at the bit to get his superintendent internship merit badge checked off. So here's an opportunity for him as well.
Oh, I just get a badge.
So then how does the board want to respond to this report? Tom, would you be interested in writing up a response that we could all then take a look at? Or is that going to be, like, I don't want to put too much on you, but like Mark said, you've really come forward with a great report yourself.
I mean, other than some side work, I'm unemployed right now, so it's no big deal. Yeah, I can totally work up some. I have an email out to the superintendent of Lemoyne. She's obviously very busy. But she responded and said, "Oh, this is great, and I will get you the information. I have a grant due, and then this and that, and it's fine. It'll happen." But that was just to give a bit more context of the Lemoyne numbers, which I think are an outlier in some sense from others. But yes, I can. I would love any input. So I'm not a great author. I'm a really good copy editor. Any and all input that comes in would help greatly, and I can always, it can be in bullet points or whatever you want. I can make it all pretty and submit it to you.
Tom, Dr. Meltzer would be happy to work with you. That's right up her alley, as well as Michael, to provide some framework and context for teaching and learning. But I just think a lot of the stuff you've done with the data and the framework, it really blends well, and it can be a team effort.
So yes, I can take this on.
Okay, awesome. And if maybe some of the other board members who have his email address can send over whatever information they might like to add or just ideas or whatever, just send them on over to Tom so that he could take a look at your feelings as well.
Is there a time, are you thinking about a particular time frame in terms of the response?
Not speak, I would think that it would need to come back to the board probably by next month would be ideal, but not, I know it's the end of it's holidays and all that. And end of the school year and transition of semesters, but probably we would want it to go with the budget, I think at the latest. So that would be March at the latest.
I'm happy to work with you on it. I just wanted to get a sense of possibility.
And if I'm delaying it too long, let me know if you want it earlier. But I think that
No,
that's
I mean, I
drop
think
dead date.
I think part of the response is especially waiting for the information from Lemoyne is really pertinent because that's one town that is very similar to us. And I think, you know, in giving some ideas and other information other than just responding to what they're saying, I think we need that information.
I would just note, Jennifer, that I've had an inquiry and Mike has from the press. They're just looking for what the school committee may wish to put out. And so I think March is a good target. I would hope that it wouldn't be any later than that. You know, I think that allows a lot of time to complete the research, to do a draft. And as somebody indicated, I think it was Tom, it should go through, if it's coming from the school committee, it should come to the school committee for a presentation and then a vote.
So we can put that on the calendar for next month, future agenda items, and see what you might have by then.
We should do monthly updates. Yeah, and it can be as simple. It doesn't need to be anything elaborate. So.
Yep.
Okay. I would suggest, I think that doing it along the timeline in terms of the budget, I think that's sort of a natural fit because it, this was presented to us, of course it ended up in the middle of the COVID time, but it kind of coincides with our work moving forward. And I think it fits being able to look at those recommendations from the hard work that that group did, and then give us some time to sort of reflect and, build off of that, of where, we can find, some areas of savings, and also create a sort of a bigger picture of, where we are and why we are where we are.
Jennifer?
Yes.
I hope that this response or this report is not a be-all end-all. I hope it opens up a dialogue. I really do. I hope that there can be a continued dialogue. I think there should be an opportunity for a question and answer forum. I'm happy to make myself available, whatever resources, but I can't say enough. I don't want this to be adversarial or point counterpoint. That they've identified some really important issues, and we have a responsibility to work through those issues. And I hope this can be something that moves us forward. So I'm looking at it in that vein, and I say that publicly because we all need to be part of a solution and move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Other business? I don't have any. I don't think anybody else. Okay, we have public comment on here, but I don't think there would be any in the second set because
I checked with Selena and we don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next regular meeting is Tuesday, January 12th. And any future agenda items?
Oh, we have a ton. I think we talked about them. And of course, when we circle back with Mike and you, we can make sure when we put out that draft agenda, if there's anything else. But all the things we talked about tonight, I think.
Yeah. I agree. Now, I just have a question because I don't know if this is something that's appropriate or not. I would like to be able to speak to my board without you, Mark, and without you, Mike, and without the YouTube there over something personal.
It is appropriate, but you would have to have an executive session, which we've not scheduled. And so,
But it's not related to our schoolwork, our school board. It's something personal.
would you prefer to send that via email? Because this is a
Yeah.
public.
Yep, I can do that.
It's a public link, so really should close out the meeting. But if you'd like, as the chair, if you need to go into an executive session, you could do an adjustment to the agenda. I don't want to stand in the way of doing that, but I think the better course of action would be to do it through email.
Okay, I will do that. Can someone make an emotion for adjournment then?
Julie, you had your hand up.
I
Oh,
just,
I'm sorry. I don't see you on here. Oh, there you are. Okay,
That's fine.
sorry.
that's fine. I'm going to be presenting data to the AOS meeting. Should the board want data that is specific to Trenton, I'm happy to come back and do that briefly at whatever meeting you'd like. And I'm happy to help with the EO, I don't think I have the initials right, with the
SEOC.
report response. So
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. Anybody else?
So no, Jennifer, just didn't want to rebuff her. I just want to make sure we're following all the rules.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Then I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All
Second.
those in favor? Gary,
Aye.
Darcy,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and yes for me as well. Everyone stay safe.